Hey, I'm going to take a couple of minutes here and just kind of do a life update. If you're on a limited amount of time or you just want to get straight to the deck tech, feel free to use the timestamps down below to go ahead and skip to that. So I spent the last week or so in Illinois helping my dad. He had a foot-related injury, and this was sort of the first week that he was kind of able to be up and around fully. So I spent the last week, cleaning, helping do repairs, doing yard work, putting an awning on an RV, and all sorts of tasks of that general nature. So I am physically tired, but I am back in North Carolina and ready to start recording again. However, on the way home, my flight got delayed, or rather, my flight got canceled. So I lost another day. So I am down like a week and a day of recording. I think I'll be fine. But if there ends up being a low effort video in the next week or so, like, this is kind of why. I will start getting to emails, Discord messages, all that sort of stuff as I can. I did literally zero of that while in Illinois. I brought a laptop with, kind of intending to keep up with it, but it ended up being a little bit too much between actually spending some time with my dad and all of the yard work. My days were very full. So normally I kind of read every YouTube message or YouTube comment that I get. I respond to a good number of them. The ones that happened from the last week or so, I might not actually end up getting to, and my bad on that one. That's not going to be the norm. So if you said something important to me in the last week in a YouTube comment, maybe send it as a message somewhere else. So, with that being said, now I've got a history lesson for you. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today Eddie has given me quite the challenge. Play Mono Blue Martyr. And here is a history lesson. So the year is 2014, I believe, and it was a Star City Games. I think they were still called Opens at that time, but it might have been called a Classic at that time. Regardless, it was a streamed Legacy tournament with a decent amount of stakes on the line. And in like round 4 or 5, something like that, there was this crazy feature match, and Greg Hatch brought this wild deck that you see on screen that was built around Sky Hussar. The relevant ability here is the forecast ability. Tap 2 untapped white or blue creatures you control, reveal Sky Hussar, and then draw a card. So you only have to do this once a turn, and only in your upkeep. The deck has 27 creatures, most of which are these small creatures with some degree of counterness to them. That's not a very elegant word. But the idea was that you are this strange tempo deck that could wasteland your opponent or, like mana leak, force spike their spells, and then eventually bury them in cards with something like Sky Hussar or Ninja of the Deep Hours. And this was pre additional pitch counterspells like Force of Will, so you had to go deep into things like Disrupting Shoal in order to have enough free and cheap interaction to kind of do your thing. And this deck from, again, like 2014 needs to go through 10 years of power creep to be updated for today's video. And I have played this a couple of times on the channel, and this was kind of a specific time, specific place sort of deck, in my opinion. And I beat my head against a wall for a really long time trying to update this deck list. And I ultimately decided that we needed to inject some modern power level into the deck at the expense of one of the words in the deck's title. So we are not going to do Mono Blue Martyr. We are going to do almost Mono Blue Martyr. and I'm going to add just the tiniest bit of green. Given how much better creatures have gotten in the past 10 years, and given how much more basic combat matters in the current legacy format, I don't really think Ninja of the Deep Hours hangs anymore, unless maybe you're specifically in a blue-black ninjas deck built specifically to do that. And I spent a really long time trying to figure out what my other card engine was going to be. I was thinking about things like the One Ring, but like if you look at the land count that this deck wants to play so that it can have enough pitch counters and enough creatures for Sky Hussar to do its thing, it's kind of rough. The entire reason that I'm revisiting this deck now is that Eddie wanted to see how this deck would feel with the new pitch counterspell. So why don't we look at that as well as the deck that I brewed. Let's start with our counterspell, Flare of Denial. Counter target spell. Sounds good. And its alternative cost is that you can sacrifice a non-token blue creature rather than pay its mana cost. So, you have some Martyr of Frost that's maybe not doing a ton most of the time, then you can convert that into a free counterspell. And I dipped into green because I felt like the deck needed another card advantage engine of some kind in addition to just Sky Hussar. And I felt like the small tempo game that this deck was going to try to play was just not going to be enough. So now we have two alternative win conditions. Number one, smack the opponent in the face with large Urza Saga construct tokens. We've seen it before. We'll see it again. It just works. And when we have this alongside Aether Vial, we can just continue to dump all these 1-drops into play for free off of that. Number two, I want Nadu to either just win the game, because we get to kind of do the whole Shuko nonsense and go into Thassa's Oracle, or we have something more fair, say a Lava Spur Boots, and then we can just turn every mana we have into an additional card. So we've got a few angles going. So like Urza Saga fetches the Vial to let us play all these things for free. Urza Saga fetches the Shuko for Nadu combo. Urza Saga fetches Shuko or Lava Spur Boots to turn these relatively unimpressive creatures into larger, more threatening creatures. Tamiyo is kind of weird in this deck. It's not really a win condition, and we don't even necessarily want it to flip or are very good at making it flip, but it is just a 1-mana blue creature with a relevant ability. I think that makes it good enough. There's other options. Curse Catcher, for example, did not make it into this final build. I am unsure whether I've made the deck better or worse. I have gone up on the land count by, I think, 4 to compensate for the fact that I am adding some colorless lands. Like 13 was the original land count. These are just bonus lands. I'm almost treating them more like spells that fetch these cards than anything else. So yeah, not sure if good idea, not sure if bad idea, but here's Nadu Martyr. And should you need to order a couple dollars worth of 1-drop blue creatures to try this out in your own local metagame, check out toamagic.com, use promo code ThrabenU to save an additional 5% on your order. Plus, you always get free shipping, and I know I love free shipping. That being said, let's see how bad this is. Well, we're gonna play, I guess, Judge's Familiar into Urza Saga? Plains. My Judge's Familiar is maybe not gonna get great. Basic Island, you say? Sure. Let's do this thing. Day a jillion of me never checking to see if I can change this animation setting. Stoneblade? No, not quite. So our opponent is probably doing something similar to what we are doing, but, less spicy. So, I think that I need to hold up Petty Theft, so I don't die easily. I might just die anyway, though. So let's do this. We did not have a counter spell heavy hand. Oh, and this is now an octopus, just for those of you who don't follow along with errata stuff. It is no longer a cephalid, despite cephalid being in the name. The kind of crappy thing here is that if my opponent plays a 1-drop enabler for this, This is awkward. I want to bounce this. I bounce this now. Otherwise, it gets worse later. This is the one that I think I am more scared of. I think I'm going to go ahead and bounce this now and hope my opponent does not get like a Narc Amoeba. Cool. They did not. Oh, cool. We took a Nomad's Encore off the top of the deck. That's nice. Sky Hussar. Cool. So, does another Judge's Familiar probably matter? I think the answer is no. I think if my opponent gets something into play, they're just good. So I think I am going to go ahead and just hold up Urza Saga. Judge's Familiar does not counter Nomad's Encore. It does not counter Shuko. Are we dead? That's fine. Wheat seems like I'm not dead. I could have considered playing this in double blocking. But I think I am the beatdown here, because that line would just leave Cephalid Illusionist in play, and the top deck combo piece probably still just beats me anyway. Maelstrom Wanderer is not the Nadu that I was hoping for. So let's continue to make some dudes here. I guess I'm hoping to beat down with these tokens. I guess that's the plan. I'll grab another Trop. Give the haste, and cross my fingers and hope for the best, honestly. Can't counter swords. I am only hitting for 3 this turn. Not the happiest about that. Lost out on a lot of damage with that swords. And this is not a blue creature for Sky Hussar, so we don't get that engine going quite yet. I want that engine going because I pretty badly need something like a Force of Will. My opponent crashing in with just a Nadu, that's fine. So, I would like to play Brazen Borrower in this turn cycle, but I don't think I can do that. If I do that and it just gets countered, I don't get Sky Hussar going. Send him. You convoking right now? The fuck does this ability do? Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to and by target creature you control. I'm not going to lie to you. In all of the years that I have played Legacy, I've never seen this ability activated. Not once. So that triggers the Nadu, revealing a Brainstorm, milling a couple of cards. Cool. So now we are going to vomit some small creatures into play. This only counters instants and sorceries, right? Yeah. So let's get a move on. I think I should have played Judge's Familiar prior to Tamiyo, but I don't think it matters all that much. I guess I need an upkeep stop during this league. I don't think I want to counter that. It's very awkward when my opponent has that much mana available. Same. Because if I lose 3 of these creatures, ooh, that's scary. To counter 1 spell over there. Instant or sorcery. Instant or sorcery. Okay, no, that's happening. That makes a huge portion of my deck much worse. Alright, bouncing my Tamiyo. But now my opponent will probably defensively hold their stuff back. This is so awkward. If I do this, I can't sacrifice one of these to kill the Teferi and make my counterspells come back online. Wow, I don't think I can draw this extra card. That sucks. Okay. So I'll play a Spirit to grow this. Send it to Fairy. Send it to Fairy. Let's do more than I need to. Go ahead and just send it all. Even if I don't have it, I have to represent counter spells here. This is going to put Shuko directly into play, though. I'm not exactly sure how I win this game before my opponent Shuko combos off. They also just have this Fair Urza's Saga beatdown aspect coming as well, even if I somehow stop the combo by it would probably be bouncing Nadu. Yeah. So this wins one way or another, I think, through my bullshit. I am going to concede and not waste my own time. So, my opponent is a leaner, faster, more efficient version of what I am doing. So that's not great. If I want to try to stop the Cephalid Breakfast side of the deck, this sort of stuff is fine. But if my opponent just combos off via Nadu, that doesn't work. I think I am very interested in Dismembers. And so much of this stuff is creature-based, so the force of negations are not going to hit the correct thing. So that's awkward. Sky Hussar did not get off the ground in this game. How much of this do I want? Let's say none for the game that I'm on the play. The issue here is that every creature I cut makes some of this stuff just continuously worse and worse. Because every creature I go down makes Vial worse, makes Sky Hussar worse. Oh. Let's remove the upkeep stop until I need it. So we have some amount of defensive ability, although the Force of Will pitch right now is pretty rough. I do not want to counter spells with these creatures because I need the Sky Hussar bodies to get going. Next turn, I will hyper aggressively just fire off Sprite on literally any spell my opponent plays that I can counter. And if my opponent doesn't play anything, I will just flash it in at the end step. Okay, cool. We do have the third land to curve into Nadu. Bash for 1. 19. Yeah, that's not counterable. So we'll fetch a Trop. I'll throw down a Sprite. I'll now set this upkeep stop. And then I will tap 2 blue creatures to draw a card. So now, in theory, I give up 2 points of damage every turn for the rest of the game to get an extra card. Brazen Borrower gives me something to pitch to Force of Will. That's not one of my good cards. A new Mausoleum Wanderer. That's not bad. I would rather just throw a Nadu out there. I am unsure if I can fight over it if my opponent Force of Wills. Fuck, it's a Mystical Dispute. This is counter unless they pay 1. I don't think I get to counter that. Like, I really want the increased clock. I really want the combo potential. But given that my opponent needs to resolve exactly 1 spell from here to have a win, I don't think I get to mess around with that. It is tempting to Force of Will that card, though. I think my opponent's Landlight. There's a shuffle. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. For sure. Mausoleum Wanderer is probably my Force of Will pitch if my opponent plays a relevant card. That keeps me from Sky Hussaring this turn. Okay. So, this is kind of funny. I can cast Brazen Borrower and then do the Sky Hussar thing. Yeah. We can try to keep the counter spells flowing. Yeah. Okay. I can't deploy anything else this turn, but I now have 2 layers of protection versus the Nadu or the Cephalid Illusionist. So, Eddie, there's your Flare of Denial being good until my opponent just, casts a Teferi or whatever. I guess we just counter that, right? All right, there it is. Do I pitch a Martyr or a Wanderer first? I think Wanderer. So Force of Will, pitch Wanderer. We've got some selection. Oh shit, I think it's just working. Cool, that means that I can Sky Hussar on my next turn. We've got some more action. Okay, I don't get a Sky Hussar this turn. That's a Shuko. I don't know that I'm playing that this turn. I can sacrifice Martyr to counter a spell unless my opponent pays 2. In addition to having Flare. Yeah, I don't Shuko. So Flare of Denial works against Sky Hussar in that you are losing a creature, so you don't as easily have the 2 in play to get this going. Guess I'm glad I trimmed 1 Sky Hussar to go down to 3 rather than all 4. All right. Yeah, I guess we're just missing the damage. I just need to draw cards, keep it going. A Dismember, that's a good pickup. Force of Will, that's an okay pickup. I'll show the opponent the Shuko now. We've got a couple layers of protection, although using any of these spells is actually a little rough. Yes, that happens. So there is the Nadu. If I let this hit play, my opponent will get one activation of Shuko and another from my Dismember. I think I don't want that to happen. Don't have the 3 mana for this hard cast currently. So this kind of sucks, but I think this is how I should play it. And I think I just hope to draw some 1-drops naturally. Land. Negative. We may have to end up Force of Will and pitching the Sky Hussar, which means that I have a harder time crawling back into the game. That's fine. I'm not going to force that and hope that I just top deck a Nadu. Sure, that's perfectly fine. A side effect of using Sky Hussar to draw cards is that, I don't know, I've probably missed 4 to 6 damage this game. Nomads in Core gets milled. That is an Illusionist. I think I would like to try to dismember that. So, because equips happen only as a sorcery, my opponent can't just like hold priority and stack up a whole bunch of activations like they can with something like a Nomads in Core. So let's go ahead, a 4 life and 1 mana to dismember that. And I can Force of Will to back that up. All right, let's see if my opponent mills anything relevant. We took a Nadu off their deck. Let's end step a Brazen Borrower, try to get the life total thing on a roll here. Urza Saga is cool. Urza Saga means that I can hard cast this Force of Will rather than pitch cast it. Although it is slightly unclear whether or not hard casting it is better than pitch casting it in some instances. All right, cool. Dismember is kind of whatever as a draw. It's quite good versus another Cephalid Illusionist. Less good versus a Nadu. We do have more Surveil lands here. Notably, I did think about Surveil lands for this list, but I think with the 4 Urza Sagas and the need to play a large number of 1-drop blue creatures, it just wasn't worth it. Yeah, and then I just activate, get Hasty Boots, and go. Lava Spur Boots, there we go. So that felt pretty reasonable. The Sky Hussar engine is a little sketch in this matchup. I think going down to 2 of those is okay. Another note here, I did not put a white land into the mana base to attempt to cast Sky Hussar. That's not something that we really want to do. Yeah, this is fine. So the real question is whether or not I just like ball and play Urza Saga immediately on turn 1. Ponder is fine. If I play Urza Saga on 1, that kind of gives up the fair construct side of things. And means that I'm probably not putting creatures like these into play. But if I draw the next land drop right here, that maybe doesn't matter. So this is mostly, do I want multiple shots at just hard casting Nadu? I think I do. Let's try to make my opponent spend their mana on removing this. My opponent, last time this hit play, just immediately valued removing it. That's fine. And if they don't remove it, I would potentially just use my mana to crack the clue. All right, we've got a new land drop. I think I let that resolve and focus my efforts on other things. Okay. So now I get to hold up Brazen Borrower while also holding up Crack a Clue. 0 combat damage dealt, obviously. So if my opponent casts a Nadu, I can Brazen Borrower this out of play to not have to deal with things immediately. It is a Teferi. No. Force of Will. I think pitching a Judge's Familiar and keeping the second copy of Nadu. I could Clue first. I don't need to bounce this turn. I guess that runs into days. Yeah, let's keep the second Judge's Familiar. Or sorry, let's keep the second Nadu. That's a Force of Will. I'll now crack the Clue. Ooh, I did not hit a land. That is not good for me. So my opponent is just going to tempo my land. They don't know that I am going to be missing a land drop here. And I'll take one. My Tamiyo does not have power and toughness, unfortunately. Unless it does. So, replay this. Cast some booties. Equip some booties. 1-3. Send at Teferi. This is on attack. So I do get my clue still. And we have to hope that I don't die. Am shields down. To kill the Teferi, I lost the ability to play Judge's Familiar. My opponent can just like fair. Yeah, okay. Well, that kills me. GG's. We were just the slower, more clunky deck here. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and honestly, they're just the best at what they do. If you need to keep your deck lists online, this is the way to do it. They have all sorts of different viewing options. You can condense that text if you like things to be tight. You can make them visual grids. You can put them in stacks. You've got all sorts of different ways to kind of view and visualize your deck lists, and they also have some really cool functionality, like allowing you to see playtest hands and even fully playtest your decks. So check them out. Okay, so with one land, no vial, I don't think this is gonna do it. Second verse, same as the first. This is the best hand of what I have seen so far. I have to throw two of these back. I guess Force. Then if I draw a blue card, I can play Judge's Familiar and have Force of Will blue card to protect Nadu. A fundamental issue here being that I do not have enough land to just do my thing. We have a Surveil land. Junking a snow-covered forest. Well, there's the other blue card. I think I am going to just lead on this, kind of give me the most amount of time possible with my Urza's Saga to find land 3 to cast Nadu. Fuck! So it is feeling like we are playing against lands. This is going to get me an Aether Vial now, in all likelihood. Get in there, little bird friend. 19. Fucking stop. Stop it. Absolute sicko. Alright. This is a basic island. This Nadu is potentially Force of Will fodder at this point. Let's get the basic. Drop a new creature and pass. Okay, we're just chilling. Cool. I'm like perfectly happy with that. Bend in for 2. 16. The fact that we are playing against Wastelands and potentially Wasteland Recursion here makes the Urza Sagas and the Nadus significantly worse. I'm expecting another Surveil land here of some kind. Yeah. Bojukabog. So the first real spell that happens, I can Force of Will. Cool. Now I can bounce something like an Endurance to hand if my read on the situation is like ever so slightly wrong. Oh shit, it is like a Nadu deck of some kind instead. Do I want this in play? I think I let that in play, and then Brazen Borrower it in response to this fetch. Yeah. Alright, I'm not going to get quite the value that I wanted here. My opponent ends up with a few insect tokens that might be used for a Chord of Calling or similar spell. Yeah. So they get a couple of insects. It's a crop rotation. I don't know what that's getting. I could sacrifice 2 of these. I think I'm just going to Force of Will, though. Essentially is keeping my opponent off of blue mana for a Nadu. or keeping them off of a Gaia's Cradle type card. I'm hoping to just draw. That's not bad. So we are going to be trading 3 damage back and forth. The Sky Hussar is just a little weird because if I draw cards with it, I am greatly decreasing my ability to win this race. That's another one. Or rather, it's the same one again. Yep. I'll take 3 damage. I'm at 15. I have my opponent on a 3-turn clock. They have me on a 3-turn clock. I get the first attack. I think I ignore Sky Hussar and try to just win this game. Cool. And they're at 4. I'm not seeing blue for Nadu. Yes. I'll take 5. This thing is going to trigger again. I think I'm still just crashing in. No point in playing that pre-combat, I don't think, since I can't activate its ability immediately. Send it. So I can't counter that with Force of Will. I could sacrifice all 3 of my creatures to stop whatever is about to happen. That does not feel correct. Sure. That does not change the clock. Yeah. Opponent's at 2. This one doesn't fly. I'll drop it anyway. Is this just like legitimately a Vexing Bauble lands deck? No Nadu finish, and this is just value? Seems like yes. Alright, we win. So, what are we doing here? Vexing Bauble makes my counterspells significantly worse, so I will probably trim some number of counterspells and gain other forms of interaction in some number. I think I don't like Fluster and Flare. I don't know, Flare I can hardcast as just a 3-mana counterspell. Let's start with getting rid of a Fluster. I think I am going to trim Sky Hussar versus a deck that potentially will just Glacial Chasm or Tabernacle me. Tabernacle being the more important one there. Don't have any ability to interact with a land that's in play. Do those immediately. I don't know if going above 20 or Merit Lage hits matters. This helps me not die to the Nantuko. Force of Negation is interesting for Life from the Loam, but it's otherwise eh. I don't quite know here. Yeah. Let's try just this. This is an unexciting hand that has a play on turn 1, turn 2, and turn 3. And can play 2 basics in the early game as to not get wastelanded into oblivion. I am not thrilled. Yes. Okay, this is exactly what I was talking about. Cool, this means that I can turn on Flare of Denial immediately. And this is always going to be a basic island, so I'm just going to make that happen now. Yeah. I think I'm good with that. Let's just not let that happen. Okay, opponent is not playing more lands, which means that that card was not necessarily as good as I thought it was, or it means that they have another that they would like to cast the next turn and then vomit lands into play. Tamiyo. Play Tamiyo and Shuko, or I can hold up Sprite for something like a Vexing Bauble. I think I need to do this. I think I just need to put something in play that can start getting me some card advantage. I'm down a card from Force of Willing already. That is resolving. I can't do anything about that one. Valakut? Okay, so that means Dryads are in here. How about a Nadu? No. So playing a land drop doesn't necessarily make a ton of sense right now. I get to investigate. I am going to hold up Sprite and Clue activation without playing a land drop. We'll see how ham on Sylvan Library my opponent goes. All right, taken 8 here, keeping both cards. Or keeping both additional cards, rather. Got a land drop with no landfall, so thumbs up from me. I counter it. I don't know what it is, but I counter it. Maybe a green sun? Oh, that's worse. Let's draw my card with my clue token and see if there's something I would like to get rid of more than Sprite. The answer is no. This is another island. I am going to just do a quick check here. How many? All right, I'm rocking 3 basic islands. So this one is good, but future fetch lands do not represent basics anymore. This is 3rd, right? Okay, so I will not flip this. I do not want to flip this. And I'll drop a creature, call it a turn. This sacrifice. So I should move Shuko here. Again, though, this is only hitting instants and sorceries, so it will miss some stuff. Holy shit, down to 4. Yes. So that's a Dryad. Again, instants and sorceries. Valakut now gets scary. Yeah. Thanks, I hate it. So every fetch land for the rest of the game will just kill my creatures. Yep. So my opponent does not have a lot of life, but between Maze of Ith and Vexing Bauble and stuff, I am not in a great position. Oop. I'll pass the turn here, hoping to just kind of somehow squeak in some damage through Sylvan Library, having them hit no lands, but I might need to accumulate some cards in hand. I'll try it for this first turn, but if this Judge's Familiar doesn't make it around the board, maybe I just kind of wait things out. Try to play like 3 creatures in 1 turn cycle. Okay, so they are doing the Bestow, which means landfall, they can pay 2 to make a copy of the creature. If they don't, they still get the 1/1. What is it, a plant? Insect. I'd love to draw a Dismember. Opponent choosing not to attack. Drawing more lands is not great for me. My creature is just gonna eat Maze of Ith here. I'll absolutely make my opponent remember that that card exists. Alright, they remembered. Life's bad. I think once my opponent makes a single land drop, I have lost the game. I can't counter that successfully with Judge's Familiar. Oh god, it's another Valakut. Yeah, so my opponent now can pay 2 mana to make a copy of the Dryad so that they are insulated from a removal spell. I take 6 damage here. Okay, I'm going to take 3 damage here, and they are going to clear the board. My deck doesn't come back from this position. Okay, so I've got a better feel for what's happening now. This is like Naya, Valakut, Landfall. So the Dismembers are really good. The Counterspell Suite is really weird. I think Force of Negation is probably less good than I thought it was. Seeing 4th Aerlingas. Lusterstorm might be better than I think. Let's try that. Unexciting, but keepable hand. Despite all the 1-drops that I have just have none of them here. I have a turn 3 Nadu, and hopefully I'm using these on early turns. Flusterstorm doesn't counter Exploration, which matters. Let's just pass the turn. Okay, cool. I wasn't expecting a play on their turn 1 every game. Tamiyo is fine. Let's get another basic island and resolve Tamiyo while holding up both Flusterstorm, Dismember, and to a lesser extent Force of Will, although I would really prefer not to Force of Will. We got a Surveil land, and they like their card. So Wasteland is a thing. I am not willing to 2-for-1 myself to keep Vexing Bauble out of play. You got it. Okay, cool. That was not really all that bad. So let's go and get our clue. And then I will drop a Nadu, which represents a combo finish. I think that's fine to just play here. I don't think I am so scared of my opponent that I need to leave up Fluster and Dismember every turn forever. Got a tapped Valakut. And seems like no play. My opponent has paused in my upkeep here. They might be thinking about wastelanding this trop. They are. They probably should have just done it while I was tapped out. Alright, they are not. We are going to go ahead and send in for 3 damage, make another clue. I'll want to crack 1 clue on my own turn, and then 1 clue on my opponent's turn as to not flip the Tamiyo, I think. But I could just flip this card in an attempt to go towards its -7. I don't think I am into that. Go ahead and do this immediately. And Aether Vial. That's not doing a lot exactly right now, but it could. I think I am into that rather than just immediately cracking another clue. So I feel like I have a big X spell, like a Green Sun or a 4th Aerlingas covered via Flusterstorm. What is this? A crop rotation. I'll just say no. Fine saying no. Basic Island. So stack clears, it's my opponent's turn. Whatever they're going to do now gets to resolve. But I'm hoping that Dismember just covers whatever it is. Sure. That's a little annoying because I was anticipating 4th Aerlingas for X=1, which Dismember just like very easily covers. X=2 is a little trickier. The Force of Will is now hard castable. I am probably cracking a clue token and dismembering though. But I'll leave myself with that flexibility. 11. So land drop, Monarch draw. Nice. Absolutely happy with that. So this is one of the first times we've gotten the Vial going with some form of card advantage, although humorously it came from one of my opponent's cards. These notably do trample, so this as a chump blocker is not exactly perfect. I think I will go ahead and go to blocks, block 1, and then dismember the other. I don't have Force of Will to protect this due to Vexing Bauble. I am still the pretty princess, luckily. Oh, hell yeah. Yes. Okay, sure. Good with all of that. Draw a card. Sure. Activate. Yes. I think I'll put in the card with evasion. Just gonna leave this at 1. Cool. I think I'm leaving this back. Attacking for 4. Wonder if we could have built this deck around Monarch in some capacity. Another Dismembers. Very good. Yeah, you got it. So, just saying this out loud. My Force of Wills work. What the fuck is that? Sure. Awkward. Like this? If I hard cast 1, I shut off Dismember. Maybe Dismember doesn't matter as much as if my opponent is at 4 life. Alright, let's counter it. Okay, we do have a match win on the board with our Nadu Martyr deck. So this game is all about, do I draw another land card to be able to play like the Ultimate Urza's Saga game? I think I am willing to keep the hand and try. The worst that happens is I end up inefficiently using Urza's Sagas. Fantastic. Cool. So don't stifle me. Cool. And we'll drop an Aether Vial. You look like a Merfolk player. It is an end of turn Brainstorm. Oh, we've got an Ancient Tomb. Is this show and tell? Fuck. Fuck. Yeah, okay. I think I put in this one so that if my opponent goes Omniscience into some other instant or sorcery spell, I have some chance. It's Atraxa. I lose to that. So that is going to be an Atraxa backed by a Force of Will, meaning realistically that I don't have a way to beat that. I need to Nadu combo, which would also just lose to the Force of Will. Not great. Opponent has to discard a land. Well, get that going. Cast this Shuko. Vial that in. We'll equip this for funsies, and because it makes its ability slightly stronger. Never getting through the vigilance on this fucker. Oh, it's so big. I think I start by taking the hits. And we can potentially do a stream of chump blockers a little bit later on. Yes. Martyr. So, to beat Force of Will and actually win this game, I think Aether Vial needs to go up to 3 so that I can uncounterably put in a Nadu. I think that's how I wiggle towards an actual win. We'll go up to 2. Sky Hussar. That's like almost good. I'll pass turn. I'm going to set an upkeep stop. I guess next turn, in response to my Aether Vial trigger, I activate Mausoleum, Wanderer, and Martyr of Frost. For Sky Hussar, draw a card. Hope to draw Nadu and win. Nadu wouldn't necessarily be deterministic. I don't think with this deck. A Petty Theft. This is surprisingly annoying because of the Sky Hussar line that I just talked about. And I am taking my Vial up to work towards a Nadu out instead of leaving it at 1 like I normally would. Yep. So I am now going to just eat a sneak attack around Mausoleum Wanderer. Oh. Yeah, I guess that's happening. So at this point, if I am not going to Sky Hussar immediately, I think I just block with Mausoleum Wanderer and just absorb 7 damage and hope to keep absorbing 7 damage. I'll get a trop, make a robot. So, let's draw a Nadu, huh? Is not a Nadu. I also don't have flyers here. These are going to be 5/5 creatures. I can get to 6 if I Lava Spur Boots. I think I Lava Spur Boots and maybe play towards a backdoor Urza's Saga out. My opponent has protection for everything this turn, so it doesn't really matter which creature I go towards. I'll stack up 1 and make it larger. My Force of Negation isn't really a counter spell here, because I know my opponent has Force of Will, at least as protection. Opponent also has a Gajillion life from Atraxa hits. I should just die to sneak attack this turn, I think. Sure. Another land. I'm not dying to sneak attack, which is cool. But life's still very bad. I am leaving this at 3 for Nadu purposes. I'm not going to try to take this up to 5 for Sky Hussar. I think the easiest way I win is just top decking a Nadu like a Luxac. So now I have no flyer. I die in the air. I can't deal 34 points of damage, even with another construct. That'll do. So I have a little bit more counter magic that I can work with here. I don't think I want to like counter something and then try to surgical it afterwards. I don't think I'm going to live that life. Sprite is not getting me to the thing that I actually want to counter in this matchup. Either of the things that I actually want to counter, rather. And I'll trim a Brazen Borrower. When most of that stuff gets into play, it's already too late. Not all, but most. This is unexciting, but fine. So we have Judge's Familiar to get us out of initial turns, hopefully. And then we can start drawing some cards with Sky Hussar. We have half of our combo. I have Lava Spur Boots and Shuko that can increase the power of the Judge's Familiars once they actually get to start attacking. An opponent not cantripping. So this is fine. I'll play a Shuko. I will play a second bird. Shuko, the one that can attack. And send in for 2. I could like technically move the Shuko over here. Just good habits, but it seems unnecessary in this matchup. Specifically. Okay, cool. I think I do give up 3 damage to draw a card here. I think that's just kind of necessary until I have some amount of real counters in hand. Extra Sky Hussar is not what I am looking for. Yeah. But, you know, it is literally a blue card to pitch to Force of Will, so I guess that's fine. But I am giving up so much damage to draw these cards. I'm going to assume that it is correct to do so. It just feels real bad. versus just like make a big Murktide Regent or Psychic Frog and just use the counter spells that are already in hand. I guess Psychic Frog is another potential way to take a deck that looks like this. I don't know that you just have enough stuff to support it though. All right, so that helps to play around these quite a bit. Floating mana there. I think that's just happening. Slightly inconvenient, but here we are. I'll take that. So I'll pass the turn. It's sort of unfortunate that I don't have other creatures to start drawing like 2 extra cards per turn. And missing out on this damage means that it is freer for my opponent to Ancient Tomb. Okay, cool. We will just keep Sky Hussaring. Got a Thassa's Oracle in hand. I think I am literally just playing that as a blue creature. Yeah. Yep. Alright. Remind myself how this card actually works when you do it fairly. 1 on the top of your library, rest on the bottom. Do I even want any of that? Tameo's okay, I guess. Tameo is just another blue body. I think I'm okay with that. Well, whatever we're doing is apparently working. Discarding an Emrakul. Now I'll Sky Hussar, tap down 2 of these. Draw that Tameo, draw another card for turn. Cool. So, play Shuko. Could have done that off trop. Matters in some Blood Moon instances. Opponent will drop to 13 here. I guess I will be good and move the Shuko around a bit. So now we have double Force of Will, Fluster, double Judge's Familiar. The Judge's Familiars matter a lot less with 2 Ancient Tombs. That is the One Ring. I'm going to attempt to say no to that, pitching a Sky Hussar. This feels like a Flusterstorm moment. Yeah. Flusterstorm, even more potent than normal, with Judge's Familiars in play. And I'm hoping to not need to use another spell here, because then I would lose the Sky Hussar. Although the Sky Hussar maybe doesn't matter at this point. Because my opponent is at 7, I have, what, 1, 2, 3, 4 power in play? Yeah. Let's just say no again. So I don't get bonus cards anymore other than the Tameo one. Lol. So we send this in. I investigate. My opponent goes to 3, so they can tap 1 Ancient Tomb, but not both. So the Judge's Familiar tax is online again. Ah, damn. So my opponent had a bunch of counters, but not enough counters for my bullshit blue deck. Let's go. Alright, I am willing to keep this hand. I have some amount of early interaction, with the biggest question here being, do I actually play Aether Vial on turn 1, or do I hold up Flusterstorm to play around either like Lotus Petal land show and tell or Ancient Tomb show and tell? And since they played the petal out immediately, I think I just hold up Fluster and pass. You could make an argument for Judge's Familiar as well, I think. But if Ancient Tomb specifically is involved, then Judge's Familiar isn't good enough. Part of me just wants to Fluster this Brainstorm and try to keep my opponent's hand awkward. I think I am going to do that. Has to be trop. I think this is just one of those times where my opponent is probably doing something more powerful than what I am doing. Ooh. You got it. That interaction takes the Lotus Petal, though, so I'm not upset about that one. I'd like another land in my next 2 draw steps here. So, yeah. This one first, I think. And then Vial afterwards. I have very little protection available right now. It's just the Judge's Familiar. Next turn, things are better, but this is the turn that I'm scared of. Okay, none of these things are counter spells right now. Judge's Familiar is not countering show and tell around Ancient Tomb. I'll put in a Nadu. My opponent has an Emrakul. Let's top deck a Shuko, huh? One-time dealer. File goes up. Okay. So, I can trigger Nadu. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can just survive this anyway. But let's see where this goes. Not a land. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can keep Nadu, Urza's Saga, and like Ray. Yeah, I will have 8 total permanents. Here it comes. So activate. Yes. And then sacrifice 6 permanents. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Take 15, casually as one does, and see if we can beat an Emrakul. Ugh. That's a land. My Nadu is dead. I need to top deck another Nadu. Seems unlikely. Pull a land out of the deck to help with the odds. Nadu! It is Shuko. We are dead. Well, we are much more live in that than I was expecting after the show and tell. Okay, no mana. Auto mulligan. This hand does nothing. This is a great example of it has lands, it has spells, but it has no game plan whatsoever. Oh my god. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My player draw. I won the play. To win, my top 2 cards need to be like land, so I can cast Nadu on 3. Otherwise, this gets an Aether Vial. Yikes. I guess in my 17-ish land deck, whatever it is. I'll keep castable blue cards, I guess. So we're starting on Shuko, and I don't super care about the Shuko itself. Mountain. Sure. Could get Moon game 1, it's possible. It's more likely in post-sideboard games. That's not a land. I will probably lose this game pretty fast. We'll see. Sure. How bad could it be? Is a painter? Spirit Guide for Grindstone? Sure. So I'm going to die next turn. So in case you're not familiar with how this goes, my opponent will activate Grindstone, hold priority, weld Grindstone into Painter. The Grindstone does not need to be in play to continue its ability. I am not going to show my opponents more cards for a game where I am just dead to any land drop over the next 4 turns. I quite like Dismembers here. I think I like a Tutorable Crypt. Urkel's Recall is not necessarily a game winner, but is fine. Flusterstorm misses too much stuff here. I don't think I like that. And then I'm a little less sure from there. What I'm thinking about is Sky Hussar specifically. Like, Flare of Denial works against Sky Hussar, but Flare hits things that Force of Negation doesn't. I could play more fair game and go down on counterspells. That's another way to approach this. I guess I could get rid of my Force of Negations, keep the 6 generic ones that can counter everything. Sprite is proving to be a little awkward without additional support. This isn't going to counter Fables. This isn't going to counter Painters most of the time. Let's turn these into a couple of Surgicals. No land auto mulligan. I don't like this. Like, the plan is attack for 2 on turn 2 and then make Urza Saga tokens. I don't know how much better I am doing on 5, though. Say Livy. Got a mountain from my opponent. Into a welder. You got it. Sky Hussar is not at its best right now. I only have 1 blue creature. And the Urza Saga Construct tokens that I would like to get off my mana would also mean that I am not producing additional blue creatures. Ooh, that's a fun one. Grindstone is happening. Opponent choosing not to poke with Goblin Welder. Martyr of Frost. I do believe that the way that I am winning this game is beat down. So I am going to continue to beat down and hope that it works out. And just give up 1 Sky Hussar draw for an extra Urza Saga Construct token. And I can attack with both of them with haste next turn. But hopefully nothing awful happens. Fuck. Yeah, so we talked about that happening in post-sideboard games. So this is just a 2/2. I can attack with it, though, because I don't think my opponent would want to give up their Magus of the Moon. So I will just send both in. Alright, my opponent goes to 12. I will play a Martyr of Frost, which is a generic counterspell that is sitting in play. Goblin Welder just makes things awkward, though. Because let's say my opponent plays a Painter, I can counter that, but my opponent can just grindstone it back can welder it back into play for minimal cost. Yeah. So if I counter this, Pyroblast is less live. I think I need to draw a card with the Martyr of Frost and attempt to find a Dismember to help me get out of this situation. They don't have the third land showing yet, which is, I guess, good. Let's draw my card. That's a little late. That is also not optimal. We can now move Shuko over here to make a reasonable attack. But I'm dead to a land, so, you know, that's not the greatest. Sure. So this is the mana to activate the Grindstone, and then, okay, my opponent had the land anyway. So activate Grindstone, hold priority, weld this into that. My multiple counterspell effects don't do anything against that. And my opponent has dodged a key way that I was hoping to interact with them. Okay, we don't have enough mana to function. We do have enough mana to function, but we have no ability to play Magic. This is 5. Help me, Urza's Saga, you're my only hope. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're playing against a blue deck. I think I will be fetching a basic here. It's a little awkward because of Nadu, but drawing the extra land there helped out a lot. I think I just don't want to get wastelanded in the first turn cycle. Alright, we're in play, but my opponent thought about it a bit. No play in the first turn cycle. Oh, I'm pretty bad against something like a Stoneforge Mystic that would come down right here. It is up the Beanstalk. Counters instants or sorceries. Hopefully I can bury my opponent with Urza's Saga tokens. That's kind of what has to happen here. Not the happiest with just drawing a whole bunch of land right after a mulligan to 5. Now we get to increase this thing's power, meaning that I push more damage and that its counter ability gets slightly better as well. We've got a lot of colors here, so we should be expecting Prismatic Ending. Martyr of Frost, not really doing much right now. We're going to be throwing mana into Urza's Saga for as long as we can. Yeah, this is something I was going to talk about at the end of the video if it didn't come up during the league. Yup. So, since it just happened, let's talk about this. So this entire deck is built around 1-drop blue creatures and something that draws a card. And Orcish Bowmasters is declining in popularity right now. It's not the 40% of the format that it was for a long time. I've been out of the game for about a week, so I don't know the exact percentage right now, and I'm not going to look it up. But it's probably closer to 30-something. Am I just going to get 4th Aerlingas? Yeah. But building your deck around something that folds to Bowmasters on both levels, the 1-drop toughness level and the draw a card level, is still a pretty bad idea. And what we are doing here is working so much harder than core legacy staples. We're working so much harder than 4th Aerlingas, Up the Beanstalk, The One Ring, Murktide Regent, Psychic Frog, Grief Reanimate. You get the idea here, right? And so I think we are running into, like, the payoff is just physically not worth it for what this deck is fundamentally trying to accomplish. And even something like shoving in a Nadu package is just not enough to make that worth it. So we have 3/3s now. There'll be 4/4s in a second. I want the I want the haste here more than anything else. So we will be picking up Lava Spur Boots, playing Urza Saga. We equip our haste enabler to this token. And I think we just spread the damage, spread the equipment across the two different bodies. Yeah, that's rough. So I can still equip the Shuko here. If I attack, my opponent just jump blocks with this orc. And I free up more things to attack me. I think I am just letting my opponent remain the Monarch uncontested here. I think this game is over. My opponent has two different card advantage engines, and I was on a mulligan to 5 in the first place. Like, we can pretend that I'm still playing Magic with this second Urza Saga, but I don't think that I am. I think my opponent is just going to be too good at finding removal that cantrips via up the beanstalk. Okay, it's another one. Yeah, I think I effectively lose the game to a removal spell now. But my opponent doesn't have white mana showing, so at least I've got that going for me. Oh, it's just going to be a Murktide Regent that cantrips twice. Sure. So now we probably need to top deck Nadu. I guess in good news, the Murktide Regent is small. In bad news, like this. Nadu. Not Nadu. So I'm not dead next turn. So I've got that going for me. I'm always making a friend. I can make it so both of these could trade with Murktide Regent. I could crash in for like 10 damage. My opponent loses 2 tokens. Or I wait a turn, and then Murktide Regent doesn't trade with them anymore. Without another body involved. Sure. Then let's just play a flyer that I would be comfortable chump blocking Murktide Regent with if Murktide attacks. Wow, that is a force of will. It's just converting those cards into new cards. I did get a Lorien revealed out of that. Yeah, but my opponent is just sitting back being the Monarch, letting up the beanstalk do the thing. This is disastrous. Cantrips are no big deal, though. Things that they find are game-breaking. Ponder shuffled, I guess that's good. Murktide is going to clock me for 5. So now my attacks will be better, but my opponent might have like hard cast Solitude or pitch cast Solitude or Leyline Binding. Brazen Borrower is theoretically not a bad card, but I'm not the most excited about it in this specific position. I think we're Violent, because mana keeps getting tied up in these boots and Urza Saga activations. So, let's see what percentage of my stuff dies in this combat step. All right. So, is that hard cast Solitude? Target the one with ward, you coward. Yeah. Cantrips twice. Takes out one of them. Now, my opponent can either chump block or just pile up a bunch of raw bodies in front of these things. They're going the chump block route. I don't think it matters which path they take. Like, I think I am beaten either way. My opponent can more or less just kill me in 2 turns without playing any additional cards, and something like a 4th Aerlingas would just make me fold immediately. And I am unlikely to just kill my opponent from 14. Also, my opponent has 8, soon to be 9 cards in hand from the Monarch. Alright, Prismatic Ending eats one of my things. Let's draw Nadu? Nadu would just resolve and we'd win the game through all my opponent's nonsense, right? Like, that would be fun. It is a Martyr of Frost. And if I bounce something like the Murktide or Solitude to my opponent's hand, that just re-triggers up the beanstalk. Yeah, let's move on. Unfortunately, I don't really think my sideboard is built super well to deal with control deck lists. I guess I need to stop up the beanstalk and 4th Aerlingas. The sprite isn't doing the best job at that. That's a good counterspell mix-up. Don't think I'm going to mess around with this for some of the things like Solitude. So, do I just want to attempt to win the game via Urza's Saga? No. Am I going to do so? Yep. Am I going to fetch a tropical island so I can top deck a Nadu at some point? Yes. Does that make me considerably worse versus Wasteland? Yep. All right. I will play Martyr of Frost this turn, I think. I can play and equip Shuko next turn and attack with this if I want, or I can be holding up its ability. All right, we've just got a land and pass from our opponent here. So the big thing here is that if I don't play the Shuko this turn, I'm not playing it for a couple turns because my mana will get tied up in Urza Saga. I would love to draw another land here. Oops, all Shukos. That probably means that I just play both. And then we get to crash in for 3. Get in there, little buddy. Or not. I don't care if I trade 1 for 1 with the Swords to Plowshares here. Oh, sure. Alright, 3. 16. Don't Bowmaster me. Yeah. Force Negation does not counter that. This costs 2 to activate. So I would like to draw any land here to maximize my value off of these 2 Urza Sagas. Alright, that was lucky. So, I'm going to pass the turn without equipping the Shukos to this token. That way, my token does not eat sorcery speed removal spell, say, you know, a Teferi, a prismatic ending, something like that. Or not prismatic ending. Yes, prismatic ending. Ponder's great here. Weird to play Forest prior to Ponder. The Ponder shuffles. No attacks. We'll just funnel mana into Urza Saga, hope for the best. Sure. Dress down would be pretty brutal on my turn. I can't force of negation on my own turn. We will pick up the haste enabler. Oh, need to play my land. Give haste to this one, and then probably put a Shuko on each creature. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, fingers crossed. Opponent fully just in absorb damage mode here. Which bodes well for me. We have a force of negation and a half here to work with. There's more colors. Cast whatever removal spell you have on your turn, please. I can hard cast a force of negation on my turn, though, which might be what I am doing. It gets weird if I draw a land, which I didn't, so it doesn't get weird. I'm sending in with both of these. That does not eat a force of negation. So that absorbs another turn worth of damage, unfortunately. Yeah, so none of the 4 counter spells in my hand can touch Orcish Bowmasters, which is kind of funny. And my opponent essentially fogs for 2 mana. I'm in an okay position. Absolutely not. Force negation, pitch Mausoleum Wanderer. And the goal is to swing lethal on my turn. We will just stop that. I'm not going to do any math here. The math is my opponent's dead unless they have another piece of interaction. End of turn, we'll make 1 more construct. So all of these get to attack, plus this one is going to get to attack with haste sometimes. Sure. Make a friend. Vial doesn't matter anymore. So we will just spread this out a bit. I guess I could pile all the Shukos on the one with Ward. In case my opponent has, like, swords plus white card Solitude. This is still just lethal. Cool. No changes to sideboarding. This hand does not do anything on Legacy Power level. This hand does not do anything on Legacy Power level. Am I willing to go to 5? Yes. Oh my god, deck. 4 against a control deck. 3. I think we're done. I think that's enough suffering for me. Okay, so we did win some games. We did win 1 match. But ultimately, this wasn't strong enough. So let's talk about some different angles of why this deck was bad. And I'm going to get rid of the sideboard here. So the first thing you run into is that whole, like, Orcish Bowmaster, your creatures are fragile problem. Against Bowmasters, this plan is not good. With the new Flare of Denial, that works against the Sky Hussar plan. With no manipulation to find Nadu and just relying on raw card draw that's kind of hard to set up anyway, this didn't end up being the plan B that I hoped it would. We did not assemble Nadu plus Shuko at a single point in the league. We were live to top deck it, but we're not playing Brainstorm and Ponder. We're trying to keep the creature count very high to make Sky Hussar reasonable, and as a result, we're not that good. Note that the original version of this build ran 13 or 14 lands. I added 4 lands, and we still absolutely just tripped all over ourselves in terms of hitting land drops, so that was rough. We intentionally had to keep in mind that we don't want to flip Tamiyo with this deck, because we don't really have instants and sorceries like Brainstorm and Ponder that we want to bring back. And bringing back a Force of Will or Force of Negation or Flare of Denial even still means that you have to sacrifice another card in some capacity to make those things work. So the Tamiyo minus would often be worth half a card unless it's Flusterstorm specifically. And another thing is that, like, a bunch of the things in this deck specifically care about instants and sorceries in a time where Legacy is playing more enchantments and artifacts and creatures than ever. You know, back in 2014, yeah, those control decks are running so many instants and sorceries. But now the control decks are playing more creatures than ever, you know. 2014 was that like in a Strahd-ish time? So those decks would have had like some Snapcaster Mages, maybe some Vendilion Clicks or something like that. Maybe Stoneforge Mystics, but not nearly as many creatures as you see today with all the Bowmasters, Psychic Frogs, stuff of that nature, Murktides running around. So I think this general strategy is A, too slow for current Legacy, B, not powerful enough for Legacy, C, does not line up well against the other things that you are expecting to see in Legacy. And we didn't even get Grief reanimated today. Like, my opening hands were kind of rough, but if my opponent goes Grief, take the Sky Hussar that my deck is built around, reanimate their Grief, take whatever else was relevant for my beginning of the game, like, how am I keeping up? I even tried to backdoor something powerful into the deck, and that did not work. So this brew was a failure. Thumbs down from me. I don't think it's super worth exploring here. We did not successfully power creep this deck up to 2024 standards, but that's okay. Many of your brews are going to be failures. In fact, most of your brews are going to be failures, but you learn a lot of things along the way, and I think that's what matters. All right, folks, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. You need cards, you know where to go. Promo code ThrabenU saves you 5% on your order at Tales of Adventure. Whew. All right, see you tomorrow. I can't just say see you tomorrow and then see, all right? That's too much see. See you anyway.